On YouTube, A Crown, the Three Ranger Bros council member, is the creator of The Author's Crown. These are his stories. Hello everyone, welcome to The Author's Crown. My name is A Crown. In this channel, I will present to you stories written by both myself and occasionally stories written by good friends of mine. So without further ado, let's get this show started. Today's story was inspired by Deadpool and Wolverine, and is my own version of how Blade and Johnny Storm ended up in the void and joining the Resistance. So sit back and enjoy Fang and Flame, Tales from Before the Void. Werewolves. Never thought I'd be going after werewolves, I thought to myself as I pursued my target. But with all the vampires gone, I had nothing else to hunt. Ever since I woke up after the battle with Dracula, I had to find a mission. I left the Night Stalkers. The kids were good, but my mission in the end is a lonely road. Not to mention the Daystar weakening me. I didn't want any of my slight vulnerabilities to put them in danger. I followed it across the rooftops, leaping across each one easily. I soon caught up to it and stared it down. "Let's dance, motherfucker," I said as I drew my sword. It roared and charged at me. I parried its claw attack and immediately struck back with my sword. The beast whimpered as it grabbed at its wound. It growled at me and I bared my teeth at it. It charged again and I threw a glaive at it. As it slashed, cutting deep in its arm, I walked up to finish it off, raising my sword high into the air. As I grew to bring it down, another wolf leapt onto me. I rolled, kicking it off me. I looked round as 3 wolves joined us on the roof. I readied my sword again and said, "Y'all always come out the woodwork together, just like vampires and cockroaches." They growled and circled at me as I tried to rotate and kept my back away from more than one of them. I sliced through one's neck as it leapt at me. I ducked another, narrowly avoiding its claws. I threw a glaive hard enough it burst through one of the wolves' hearts. I went on offense and cut around to its back, plunging my sword deep into its heart. I stared down the remaining 2 as I charged and swung my sword, clashing with the wolf's claws. The other remaining wolf grabbed me from behind and dug its claws deep into me. It burned. I tried to pull away with the claws in my chest, and this beast's strength made it hard even for me. I took my sword and stabbed it through my own stomach, taking great care to miss my vital organs. The sword wounded it. I then pressed my gun against its chest and fired. The bullet pierced its heart as it dropped to the ground. I looked down at my wounds, saw that I was bleeding. "That's new," I said aloud as I turned back facing the first wolf. It charged me again and tackled me. We both then fell off the roof. I swung my sword as it swung its claws. It got in a few blows, and as it moved directly underneath me, we continued to fall. I positioned my sword even with its heart as we got close to the ground. It hit first, and then I landed right on it, and my sword went through the beast into the ground. It howled as it began to turn back into a human. I was shocked when I saw the face of Hannibal King lying before me. I stepped back as he said, "Blade, I'm sorry. I couldn't control it. We went in alone to a nest and we were all turned." I looked up towards the roof and asked, "Was one of those?" He answered before I could finish my sentence, "Yeah, she was. I'm so sorry, Blade. Don't beat yourself too bad. You didn't know." I looked around as a crowd of onlookers began to walk up all around us. One person said, "Call the police." I seen some of them pull out their phones and began to talk to the police. I pulled my sword out and ran off into the night. Soon I arrived back home. I threw my sword in anger against the wall as I thought about what Whistler would have said when he found out about me killing his daughter. I can imagine he would have been pretty pissed. I began hitting a wall nearby. My strength left massive dents and cracks in it. I then heard a knocking sound and turned around to see People in strange armored suits stepping out of what I could guess were portals. One of them walked towards me holding some kind of device and said, "Eric Brooks, also known as Blade, your world is scheduled for erasure." "Who the hell are you?" I asked. He responded, "We're the Time Variance Authority." I responded, "You're cops. Cops don't last long against me. Now get the fuck out of here. I'm not in the mood to deal with a bunch of armored assholes. You're coming with us whether you want to or not." "Okay, I'll bite. What laws did I break?" I responded as I watched them surround me. Another step forward, holding some kind of weapon, and said, "Nothing. This world just isn't meant to be." "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked. I readied myself for an attack. "You're coming with us, Blade," another one said as he walked towards me. I grabbed his arm and broke it, saying, "That's not gonna happen." The others drew their weapons, and I reached for my sword nearby. I ducked as one swung their weapon at me. I pulled the sword from the wall and started blocking attacks left and right. More of them came from portals and began to swarm me. They took me to the ground, knocking the sword from my hand. A few of them grabbed hold of me, keeping me held on the ground. I headbutted, punched, kicked, doing anything to try and get free. The one with the device walked up and pulled out a similar weapon. He then plunged it into me. I could feel myself burning up. I looked and saw my body vanishing as everything flashed before my eyes and then went black. I woke up and looked around, seeing nothing as far as I could see. I stood up, looking around for those stupid soldiers, cops, whatever the fuck those Time Variance Authority guys were. I didn't see anybody, so I yelled out, "Hey, where the hell am I?" I got no answer and began walking around. I walked for quite some time, crossing paths with nobody. As I continued walking, I heard voices nearby. I followed the source and peeked over a hill. Saw a group of people arguing over a bag. I accidentally made some noise and they turned towards me. I got up and approached them. I asked, "What the hell is this place?" One, wearing armor with a red beard and a hobbled together axe, looked at me and says, "This guy must have just gotten here. What you guys think? Should we help him?" One of the others, this one having black hair, wearing raggedy brown rags with a mace, eyed me and said, "I like them clothes. We should take them." I eyed him down and said, "Motherfucker, you could try." The third one, blonde with a mustache, goatee, and green clothes with a cape, had a machete in his hand, said, "Oh, he's got fight. Should make it interesting." They then charged me one by one. I blocked the blonde one easily and disarmed him. I took his machete and stabbed him as the other two came forward. I avoided axe swings from the big one, knocked him down with a jump kick, plunging the machete into his chest. I stared down the black-haired one as he screamed, "You killed my friends!" He charged me, swinging his mace wildly through the air. I ducked it easily and stabbed him in the chest. I pushed him off it, and he fell to the ground with the other two. I wiped the machete off and said, "It's not my sword, but it'll do." I walked over and picked up the bag they were arguing over. It had some food in it. I checked my pistol, finding it still loaded. Put it back in an empty holster attached to my leg. I threw the bag on my back and began walking to try and find some answers. "What the hell, Grayson? I don't want to do this."
Come on, Roy. Don't be a jerk.
Fine. My name is Roy Harper, or you might know me as Arsenal. If you're interested in an original story set in the DC and Marvel universes, you need to go to Tiger Tales and listen to War Against Gotham.
And his other channels?
Shut up, Grayson. I'm getting to it. You may also want to go check out his other channels. There, you happy dick.
You could have at least done it with a little bit more enthusiasm.
No, I did it. Now I'm going home. Flame on! I yelled as my fire enveloped me. I took off into the air after Victor. He soared up into and out of the sky, fast approaching the mass known as Galactus. I increased my speed to try and catch up, but he hit me with a blast of cosmic energy. It sent me flying back, crashing into a building. I looked up as I saw Galactus completely block my view of Victor. Then, in a bright flash of light, Galactus vanished, leaving only Victor in the sky. I got up and flew into the sky towards him, but he stopped me in midair as I felt his power gripping me. He hovered towards me, his armor now even brighter and his cape bright and tattered. He got up close to me and said, Johnny, if you couldn't beat me before, you have no chance now that I am finally, truly a god. He laughed as he threw me with a flick of his wrist, sending me crashing into Ben, Sue, and Reed. We tumbled and rolled across the ground as their powers returned to them. Reed asked me, Johnny, what happened? I looked at him scared and I said, I don't know, but it looks like he absorbed that thing. Reed replied, That's impossible. Victor hovered down to the ground, having now absorbed the board and flying without assistance. He walked towards us and Ben ran towards him, but Victor sent him crashing into a nearby car. He laughed as he looked at Reed and Sue and said, The great Reed Richards, you took everything from me, and now here you stand cowering before me, a god. Reed motioned for me to hold Sue, and I did. He got up and approached Victor. He tried to reason with him by saying, Victor, please, you don't have to do this. The power, it's too much for you. He looked Reed in his eyes and said, Oh, Reed, I've always wanted to say this, but I've grown tired of hearing you talk. He held out his hand, and Reed was forcibly shrunk to the point of vanishing from sight. Ben yelled, No! And charged at him again, but was stopped suddenly. I said, Ben! Victor looked at him and said, Let's see how strong this skin really is. Then Ben's stone body began to crumble, starting from one hand, working its way up his arm. I laid Sue down and says, I'll be right back, Sue. Unknown to me as I ran, her eyes go glassy as the last of her life passed from her. I yelled, Flame on! And flew at him. Victor turned towards me and said, Flame off! My flames dissipated and I fell to the ground, rolling. I crawled towards the pair, trying to get to Ben as his arm kept crumbling slowly and fell to the ground in pieces. Then Victor began to monologue, saying, You are all pathetic. I am the great and powerful Doom, with the powers of a world-eating cosmic entity. You will all kneel before your new... As Victor was monologuing, he was struck by a glowing baton-like object. I said, What the hell? As Ben fell to the ground, an armored man ran up and pressed the glowing stick against Ben's chest, and he vanished. All around, portals began to open up, and more of the armored-suited people ran out. I got up and tried to fight them off, but I was distracted when I saw Sue lying lifeless on the ground. I yelled, Sue! Oh my God! I ran over and held her tight, saying, Sue, I'm so sorry. I was hit, and everything went bright and then black. I woke up terrified and quickly got up and looked around. I saw nobody, not Sue, Ben, Victor, just empty wasteland. As I walked around, I saw something approaching in the distance. There was somebody being chased by some kind of vehicle. I found a nearby bush and hid as they came closer. I peeked out and saw a bunch of people got out of the vehicle and surrounded the guy who was wearing all black. One of them pulled a machete from the man's hand and a pistol from the holster on his leg. He looked at them all and said, Don't waste any more time. If you're going to do it, then do it. A few of them ran at him and he fought back. And he kept fighting back, doing a good job holding him off. But they eventually overwhelmed him and began just kicking him as he laid on the ground. One of the men, wearing goggles and a red and yellow, dingy-looking suit, turned back and looked, seeing something in the distance, and whistled. Yo, we got another one. They all stopped attacking the man and looked back. I couldn't see what they saw, but it had to be something big. I could see the man lying on the ground, barely moving. And then I heard yelling that was all too familiar. I then saw Ben running into view. He shoulder-tackled one man that got in front of him. The others charged towards him, but even with one arm, he fought off anyone approaching him. I leapt out of the bush and said, "Yeah! Welcome back, Pebbles!" "Johnny?" he said as I threw fireballs at some of them. The others, not fighting, jumped into their vehicle and took off racing through the wasteland away from us. I walked over and gave Ben a hug and said, "I'm so glad to see you." "Me too, Johnny," he said as he hugged me back. "What happened? Where the heck are we?" "I don't know, kid. If Reed were here, I bet he would know," he said. I could see the sadness in his eyes. I looked over at the man on the ground and then walked over to help him. He got up to his feet and I asked, "Are you okay?" He dusted himself off after wiping blood from his mouth and responded, "Yeah, I'll be fine, but we need to get out of here." "Why? Are they going to come back? Because if they do, I got something waiting for them," Ben responded as he held up his fist. The man looked over Ben's shoulder and pointed behind him and said, "No, it's got something to do with that." I turned and looked over, seeing a massive cloud of lightning and smoke. Inside it, lightning flashed multiple times and had wolf-like features. I then said, "Okay, that's a good reason." The three of us ran as we could see it getting closer. "Johnny, we need to fly out of here. We'll never get away from it at the rate we're going." I looked back and said, "I can't fly us all out of here. I'm not strong enough." Ben then stopped and said, "Okay, you take him, and you two get out of here." "Ben, are you crazy? You can't outrun that thing," I said, motioning towards it. He smiled and looked at me and said, "No, but I could buy you some time." I pushed him and said, "No, you can't fight that thing. I already lost Reed and Sue. I'm not losing you too." "Johnny, we don't have time for this," he said. "Make time. You're not fighting that thing. It'll kill you." "Ben, we're all getting out of here. Or none of us." "Listen, kid, I'm sorry," Ben said as he put his hand on my shoulder. I put my hand on his and replied, "For what?" "For this," he said as he grabbed my suit and threw me into the air. I looked back as I saw Ben grab the other man and he threw him in my direction as well. I crashed onto the ground, followed shortly by the other man. I stood up and looked from far as Ben smiled at me. I tried to run towards him, but the other man stood in my way. I said, "Get out of my way." "Listen to me." I stopped him and replied, "I don't even know you." As I tried to get around him, he stopped me again, pulling me back to the same position. He took off his sunglasses and said, "Name's Blade. Now, we need to go. Your friend is sacrificing himself to buy us a chance to get away. Don't waste it." I sighed as tears ran down my face. I grabbed his vest and said, "Flame on." The fire burst all over my body. I took him up into the air as I saw Ben running towards the cloud. I turned back forward and flew off as I could hear Ben yell, "It's clobbering time!" I then looked back again a few minutes later and saw nothing but the massive beast. I stopped when we were a good distance away and could no longer see it. We landed, and then I walked a few steps away and threw a fireball in a rage and set a tree on fire. The man looks at it and said, "You know, that's not a good idea with that thing out there." I turned back scowling and said, "Now's not the time. I just lost my best friend." "Look, I get it, I do. But we need to keep moving before more scavengers, or worse, that thing shows up," he said as he put his finger on my chest. I turned and said, "Where are we going to go?" He then answered, "I saw some kind of base nearby. We could approach on foot, or one of us could scout from the sky." "No," I said. "Fine, let's head that way. What's your name, kid?" he said. I looked back and picked up a ton of torn and tattered cloak off the ground. I put it on and I said, "Johnny Storm." I followed him after shaking his hand, and we walked further into the wasteland.
Riddle me this. What do you get when you get 3 Power Ranger fans who also write Power Ranger fan fictions and upload them on separate podcasts and YouTube channels, and you happen to put the 3 of them together and they form a unique Power Ranger storyline? Here's your answer. You get the 3 Ranger Bros, who is myself, Ty Tiger, the Red Corner Ranger, Mark, and the Cosplay Dude 637. We are the 3 Ranger Bros, and we came up with the idea called Power Rangers Global, a storyline where 4 different Rangers from different universes team up to save Universe 2118, a universe ruled by the gods. Now, if you want to hear Power Ranger Global, you can find it on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast, and you can find that podcast anywhere that podcast can be listened to. So one more time, that's Power Rangers Global on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast.
After a few minutes, we saw a massive pair of hands in the distance. "What the hell kind of base is that?" Johnny asked me. I respond, "Not any kind I've ever seen." I look over as the hands began to raise up. I said, "Get over there and hide. Somebody's coming." He hid under a piece of metal, while I hid behind a bush. As the convoy began to pass by, I motioned for Johnny to be quiet. Then the convoy stopped suddenly, and someone got out of the driver's seat of one of the vehicles, wearing a red and yellow suit with goggles around his neck. He yelled up, "We know you're here. We saw you when we pulled out. Come on now, make it easier on yourself." After he said this, a woman climbed out the passenger seat of the same Jeep and said, "Oh, come on now. I don't like to play hide and seek." She stepped over by Johnny's hiding spot, and I realized she was about to find him. So I took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the bush and said, "Now who the hell are you?" She turned towards me and smiled, saying, "My name's Cassandra. You're armed to the teeth, aren't you? Are you with the TVA? Did you come here trying to kill me?" "Lady, I don't know what the hell the TVA is. And I really don't know who the hell you are. And I really don't even care. I just got here and I'm just trying to get out," I said as I watched a big man in a stone helmet step behind her. She smiled and got close to me. "You know, a lot of people have tried to lie to me, but I always get the truth." She reappeared behind me and put her hand inside my head. My body went stiff as I could tell she could see all my inner thoughts. She looked at the others and said, "He's telling the truth, but there's someone else here too." She pointed over at Johnny's hiding spot. Then as the others moved towards it, a shot rang out, and one of her people dropped to the ground. Then in a flash, more of her people are knocked to the ground. The man with the goggles said, "Form up, it's the resistance!" A flash of light raced by, knocking him to the ground. As more shots rang out, followed by a rocket hitting one of their vehicles, Johnny yelled, "Flame on!" and took off into the air. The racing light pushed her out of my head, and he grabbed me in the next second in a blink of an eye. Before I knew it, I was inside a car with a few others, a woman driving and a man wearing a skull on a black vest, holding a rocket launcher out the window. The car racing around kept going, knocking all of the people to the ground. The man in the vest then fired another shot and said, "Elektra, get us out of here. Quicksilver, we're bugging out." "Roger that," the voice said as it raced back and forth. It turned and started running back towards the car, but it stopped mid-run. Then I could see her standing behind him. The woman named Elektra who was driving said, "What are we doing, Frank? We gotta save him." The man named Frank put down his rocket launcher, grabbing a rifle next to him. He began firing shots and said, "If we don't go now, we're gonna die with him." Elektra gave him a look before backing up the car. She turned it around, driving off, leaving Cassandra and her people in the dust. I asked, now who the hell are you guys? We're the resistance, and you might want to be grateful. We just saved your life. The man named Fang said, I'll be grateful when you motherfuckers give me some answers. I said. Electra then said, look, I know you're probably new here, but trust us. We'll tell you everything once we get back to our base. I watched him closely, baring my teeth, as I could see the burning Johnny flying beside us. And that's the story for today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you for listening to The Author's Crown. Subscribe to the channel! Do it now!